I opened the front door and froze. My husband, Ethan, was leaning against the kitchen counter, his hand brushing the edge of the granite like he was trying to make sense of the space. A woman I didn't recognize was there too, sipping wine as if she belonged. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just stood in the doorway, bare feet cold on the tile. The living room smelled like lavender from the candles I'd burned hours before, trying to calm my nerves after a long day with the twins. My daughter, Lily, slept in her bassinet near the window, her chest rising and falling with a quiet rhythm. My son, Max, was in the playpen, his tiny fists curled around his favorite stuffed bear. Ethan turned at the sound of my breathing and froze. The suitcase at his feet, still packed from a weekend trip, seemed suddenly absurd. I didn't expect you back," he stammered. His voice cracked, but not like he was afraid. Afraid, I realized, was me? Apparently, I said, voice low, steady. I dropped my bag on the floor, the snap of the strap loud in the silence. I watched the woman glance at him and smile, knowingly. It had started 3 weeks ago. Ethan had told me he needed space, a reset, he said. His words made my chest tighten like I'd swallowed ice. I had just had Max. My body ached. Sleep had been a memory. Every mirror showed a version of me I barely recognized, swollen eyes, pale cheeks, hair tangled in a desperate knot, and he was leaving. I remember the exact moment he kissed the babies goodbye. He whispered promises that sounded hollow. He stepped into the rideshare, leaving me standing on the porch, gripping the railing so tightly I thought my fingers would snap. The first night alone, Lily cried for 3 straight hours. I paced the living room barefoot, whispering apologies she couldn't understand. My body shivered from exhaustion, my mind screaming betrayal. Ethan texted the next afternoon, a beach photo, bright umbrellas, his caption, "Wish you were here." I stared at the screen while Max slept in my arms. His mother showed up a few days later. Sharp perfume, sharper words. "Men need freedom, Emily. You're smothering him." I nodded, swallowing the bitterness. She left, and something inside me hardened. Mrs. Henderson, my neighbor, came by that evening, taking Lily in her arms. She made me eat, made me breathe, made me see that I wasn't alone. "You need a plan," she said. I wrote down dates, messages, expenses. Not for revenge, but for survival. By the time Ethan returned, I had organized every account, printed every message, and consulted a lawyer. When he saw the papers stacked on the dining table, his grin faltered. "You left me at my weakest," he whispered. "I didn't think you'd survive without me." I leaned against the counter, arms folded. I did more than survive. I became stronger. Lily stirred, letting out a soft whimper. I stepped forward. He stepped too, cautiously. I don't know if he's ready to change, but I know I am, and for the first time, I'm not afraid of him. I woke up before sunrise. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft breathing of Lily in her bassinet. Max was still asleep in the playpen, fists curled around his blanket. I could hear the faint creak of the stairs where Ethan had walked the night before, probably thinking I was still fragile. I moved slowly to the kitchen. The morning light seeped through the blinds in thin stripes across the tile. Coffee brewed in the machine, filling the room with warmth and the smell of roasted beans. I took a deep breath, letting it anchor me. Today, I decided, would not be about fear. Mrs. Henderson arrived shortly after 7, holding a tray of breakfast sandwiches and a thermos of tea. "Morning, Emily," she said softly, placing the tray on the counter. She didn't look at me with pity. She looked at me with quiet confidence. "You're ready for this," she said. I nodded, swallowing hard. Ethan appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "You're up early," he said, his voice calm, careful. I didn't answer. I poured coffee into a mug, letting the steam fog my glasses. "Breakfast?" Mrs. Henderson said, gesturing to the tray. "Fuel. You're going to need it." I watched Ethan, noting the hesitation in his eyes, the first sign of doubt. He glanced at the papers stacked neatly on the table. I caught the slight tension in his jaw. I didn't speak. I just let him see that I wasn't intimidated anymore. Later, I carried Max to the living room and set him on the playmat. His small legs kicked as he explored his toys. Lily stirred, reaching for the blanket in her tiny hands. I smiled at them, quietly, the first real smile in weeks that wasn't forced. The lawyer called at 9:30. I answered from the kitchen, the boys' toys scattered across the hardwood. "Emily, have you reviewed the documents?" she asked. I had. I'd checked everything. Every bank statement, every joint account, every lease, every credit line. I knew exactly what Ethan had underestimated. He had assumed I was fragile, overwhelmed, helpless. But for months, while he believed I was crumbling, I had been building my case, quietly, meticulously. I understood the numbers, the legalities, the leverage. And now, I was ready to show him the truth. Around 10, Ethan tried to hand me a stack of papers. I looked at him. "I've seen it all," I said, voice steady. My hands didn't shake. My eyes didn't falter. "Do you know what this means?" He swallowed. No answer. Mrs. Henderson stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You've got this," she whispered. I nodded. I did. I had the upper hand now, not because of anger, not because of revenge, because I had prepared, because I knew my worth. And as Ethan looked at me, the realization finally hit him. I wasn't the scared, dependent wife he thought he could control. I was someone he had underestimated, someone who could protect her children, someone who could reclaim her life. And today, he would see it. The phone rang before 8. I didn't move at first. I could hear Max babbling in the background, Lily cooing softly in the bassinet. Mrs. Henderson had gone out to grab some groceries, leaving the house quiet but alive with tiny movements and sounds that reminded me why I had to keep going. I picked up the phone with slow hands. It was Rachel, my lawyer. Her voice was crisp, businesslike. "Emily, are you ready for the meeting?" I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I had the documents prepared. Every statement, every transaction, every note Jason thought I wouldn't find. I had proof. I had control. By 9:30, we were seated across from him in the office. Ethan's suit was perfect. His hair combed, his smile forced. I watched his eyes flicker to the papers on the table, then dart away as if avoiding a predator. I didn't speak first. I let him squirm in the silence. The only sound was the soft hum of the air conditioning and the faint tapping of a pen Rachel held. "Do you understand the scope of this?" Rachel asked, turning to him. I could see him stiffen. His hand twitched near his coffee cup. I leaned back slightly, crossing my arms, feeling the quiet power settle over me. I remembered the nights I had stayed up late, counting every dollar, reading every line of the leases, memorizing the statements. He had assumed I was fragile, dependent, a woman he could manipulate. He had underestimated me completely. I spoke then, slowly. "I've reviewed everything, every account, every credit line, every agreement you thought you hid." My voice was calm but sharp. Ethan's eyes widened. The corners of his mouth twitched. He opened his mouth, closed it. He tried to speak, but the words didn't come. Rachel pushed forward, presenting the calculations, the debts, the hidden transfers, the mismanaged accounts. Ethan shifted in his chair, breaking eye contact. I watched him, not with hatred, with clarity. I was in charge of my life now. I was protecting my children. I was reclaiming what he tried to take. The room felt smaller as he realized the truth. His smirk had gone. The easy charm vanished. Every motion he made was tentative, cautious. I noticed how his shoulders slumped, how his hands fidgeted. I had imagined this moment for weeks, but seeing it unfold was sharper, more real. I reached over and picked up a folder, sliding it in front of him. This is the new plan. We protect the children. We settle what is fair. You follow it. His breath caught. His lips parted. I could see panic flicker, brief but bright. Rachel's eyes met mine. I nodded slightly. Everything was ready. I had underestimated nothing. Ethan leaned back, finally speaking, his voice low. You've thought of everything. I smiled, small, controlled. I had to. For them, for me, and for you to finally understand what it means to be accountable. Outside, the sun hit the blinds at 10:05 in the morning. The day had begun, and for the first time, I felt it. Relief, strength. The kind of power that doesn't shout. It whispers, it guides, it frees, and I knew this was only the beginning. The sound of the front door clicking shut made me flinch. Ethan was gone for the morning, and the house smelled faintly of coffee and the lemon cleaner I'd used last night. I moved to the kitchen and counted the bills on the counter. Every single one matched my notes. Everything he thought he controlled, every assumption he made had been anticipated. Max crawled toward me, giggling. I bent down, lifting him into my lap. His tiny hands clutched my shirt, and I realized I hadn't just been preparing for a confrontation with Ethan. I'd been preparing for this life, one where my children mattered first, and I mattered second, only to them. The phone rang. It was Mrs. Henderson. Her voice carried that familiar, calm authority. Emily, the meeting is at 10:30. Are you ready? I gripped the receiver. I am, I said. My voice didn't shake. I was ready. I had rehearsed every detail, anticipated every reaction. I'd spent nights reviewing every statement, every lease, every account. He had assumed I was overwhelmed, helpless. I wasn't. Rachel arrived a few minutes later. Her heels clicked on the hardwood. Let's go over the strategy one more time, she said. I nodded, flipping through the folders. Ethan entered then. His eyes scanned the room and landed on the stack of papers. I saw the first flicker of doubt cross his face. He tried to smile. It looked unnatural, forced. We sat across from him at the conference table. The hum of the air conditioning filled the room, steady and constant. Rachel laid out the numbers, and I could see Ethan shift. His fingers tapped nervously on the table. He swallowed hard. I didn't speak yet. I let him squirm in the silence. Then I did. I slid a folder toward him. This is everything, I said. My voice was quiet but sharp. I saw his jaw tighten. His eyes widened. He opened his mouth, closed it again. No words came. I leaned back slightly, crossing my arms. The power wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Absolute. Outside, the morning light hit the blinds at 10:05. The room felt smaller. Ethan fidgeted, glanced around, tried to gauge my expression. He'd underestimated me. He'd assumed I was fragile, scared, compliant. He hadn't counted on me planning every move, on knowing every figure, every detail, every legal nuance. Rachel's pen tapped against her notepad. Do you understand the implications? She asked. His hands trembled. The air in the room seemed to tighten around him. I caught the hesitation in his eyes, the brief, unguarded panic. I spoke again. We protect the children. We settle what is fair. You follow this plan. My voice was calm, certain, measured. Ethan exhaled slowly, realizing he could no longer manipulate the situation. And in that moment, I felt it. The quiet, steady pulse of control. Not anger, not revenge. Power, responsibility, respect earned. And I knew he had underestimated the wrong person. Today, I reclaimed my life. Today, they all would see. I opened the mailbox and froze. The envelope inside was thick, official-looking, stamped with the courthouse seal. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears as I tore it open. Inside were documents confirming the temporary custody arrangement for Olivia and Max. My hands shook as I read the stipulations. Every word was in my favor. Every detail protected them. I leaned back against the fence in the backyard, sunlight warming my shoulders. The kids were inside, laughing and building towers from blocks. Their voices carried through the open window, and for the first time in weeks, I felt calm. Not relief exactly. Calm. A steady kind of control I hadn't known I could have. Mrs. Henderson appeared at the gate, carrying a small bag of groceries. "Looks like the universe is on your side today," she said, her eyes scanning my face. I smiled, letting out a shaky breath. "It is. More than I expected." She nodded, placing the bag down. "You did the work. You stayed calm. You stayed prepared. That's why you're here, standing tall while he's still figuring out the rules." I watched the driveway, remembering Ethan's expression from this morning. He had thought he could intimidate me with deadlines, threats, and empty charm. He had assumed I would panic, make mistakes, crumble under pressure. He didn't know I had anticipated every step, every number, every loophole. I poured myself a glass of water and walked to the living room. Max tumbled into my arms, squealing. I set him down on the rug and sat on the couch. Lily crawled over, reaching for my hand. I held it gently, letting the softness of their small fingers anchor me. I realized then that this wasn't just about legal documents or money. It was about proving to myself, to my children, that I was capable. Rachel called again, her voice firm but encouraging. "Emily, everything is in place. You've done more than most would think possible. He's going to have to adapt to this new reality." I nodded. I didn't need her reassurance. I already knew it. I had changed the rules. I had created a shield around my family. The door opened. Ethan stepped inside, tentative. His gaze swept across the living room, landing on the papers scattered neatly on the table. He froze, realizing that I was no longer the woman who would silently absorb his schemes. I met his eyes without flinching, calm, certain. He exhaled slowly, trying to collect the authority he no longer had. I stood, gathering the documents. "This is what you need to know," I said. "This is what has changed. This is the life we're living now." I let the words hang in the air. No threats, no shouting, just truth. And in that moment, I knew he understood. He had underestimated me. He had assumed control. But control had shifted. And for the first time, I felt the kind of quiet power that doesn't need to scream. It guides. It protects. It teaches. I walked to the window, watching sunlight spill across the hardwood floor. My children were safe. My house was mine. My life was mine. And I finally allowed myself to breathe. I heard the car pull into the driveway before I saw it. Ethan stepped out, phone pressed to his ear, pacing the sidewalk like he didn't know where to go. I stood behind the kitchen window, arms crossed, heart steady. I didn't move. I just watched. Max crawled to the window beside me, tiny hand tapping the glass. I smiled at him, the kind of smile that carried calm and authority. Lily squealed from the living room, chasing a rolling toy. I let their noises fill the house. They were the reason I stayed grounded. Ethan's voice carried faintly across the lawn. "I told you, it's handled." "Just wait," he said into the phone. He didn't know I could hear every word. He assumed the children and I were unaware. He assumed I was still afraid. I opened the front door slowly, letting the hinges creak softly. He glanced up, startled, eyes narrowing. I didn't speak. I let the silence stretch, heavy and deliberate. He swallowed, shifting from one foot to the other. Mrs. Henderson appeared from the side yard carrying a basket of laundry. "Morning, Ethan," she said calmly. Her tone carried no warmth for him, only certainty. She set the basket down. "Emily is ready." Ethan's jaw tightened. He looked at me again. The realization of her presence, the quiet power in her stance, made him step back slightly. I walked toward the porch, keeping my hands relaxed at my sides. Every step measured, every breath controlled. "We need to talk," I said, voice low, unwavering. He nodded, swallowing hard, the phone forgotten. Inside, the living room smelled faintly of toast and coffee. The children played on the rug, blocks scattered. I motioned for Ethan to sit at the table. He obeyed reluctantly. I placed the folders between us, neat and organized. Each one contained calculations, transfers, legal notes, every detail of the finances he thought he controlled. Rachel's voice echoed in my mind. He will see now. He will understand. I didn't need her here. I knew. I had anticipated every reaction, every hesitation. The smirk he had worn for weeks was gone. In its place, tension, uncertainty, doubt. I leaned forward slightly. I've reviewed everything, every account, every transaction, every assumption you made about what I didn't know. You underestimated me. My eyes met his lips parted, closed, words failing. Max crawled into my lap, Lily tugging at my sleeve. Their innocence gave me strength. I held them closer, letting them remind me of what mattered. Ethan shifted, uncomfortable, realizing that control had shifted. I exhaled slowly. The room was quiet. The sunlight through the blinds lit the dust in the air, turning it golden. I had done more than survive. I had built. I had prepared. I had claimed my space. And for the first time, I felt it fully. The power to protect, the clarity to lead, the authority to set the rules. He had thought he could intimidate me. He had been wrong. And now, everything had changed. The afternoon sun fell through the living room windows, casting stripes across the hardwood floor. I sat at the dining table, folders spread before me, the twins playing quietly nearby. Ethan lingered by the doorway, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, hands clasped loosely in front of him. I didn't rush him. I let the silence stretch. He tried to catch my eye, but I didn't flinch. I sipped my water slowly, letting him feel the weight of every moment. The hum of the refrigerator filled the room, punctuated by Max's giggles and Lily's soft coos. My calmness was deliberate, a quiet declaration. Rachel's words echoed in my mind. Control the room. He underestimates you every time. I glanced at the folders. Every account, every transaction, every note meticulously organized. The months of careful planning, of anticipating his moves, all came down to this moment. Ethan cleared his throat. "Emily, can we?" His voice faltered. I didn't answer. I simply leaned forward slightly, letting my posture speak. I didn't need to raise my voice. My presence filled the space. Max crawled into my lap, tugging at my shirt. I smiled, adjusting him comfortably. Lily crawled toward the table, her tiny fingers brushing the papers. I let them interact. This was my life. My home. My power was in protecting them. Ethan shifted again, glancing at the folders. I didn't realize. He stopped. His smirk was gone. His easy charm had vanished. I could see him calculating, weighing options he no longer controlled. I spoke then, calm but firm. Every detail you thought you hid from me, I already knew. Every assumption you made about my reaction, my weakness, was wrong. My eyes held his, unwavering. He exhaled slowly. The weight of realization settled over him. He had assumed fear, compliance, hesitation. Instead, he found certainty, preparation, control. Mrs. Henderson appeared at the side window, leaning slightly, watching silently. She didn't intervene. Her presence alone reinforced what I had built. She had been my anchor, my quiet support, guiding me without words. Ethan's eyes flickered to her. He understood the shift, even if he couldn't admit it. I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands. "This is the life now," I said softly, almost conversational. We protect the children. We manage the home. We move forward with clarity. No assumptions. No secrets. He swallowed hard, nodded finally. The room held a quiet energy, a charged calm, the kind that didn't shout but cut through pretenses. And as the sunlight warmed my shoulders, I realized I had won more than control. I had reclaimed my confidence. My voice mattered. My presence mattered. And for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future built on respect, honesty, and strength. If you've ever felt underestimated, overlooked, or powerless, remember this. Your calm, your preparation, your unwavering sense of self can be the strongest force in any room. Stand firm, protect what matters, and never, ever doubt your own power.